There's a new explosive whistleblower complaint out against the Trump administration. Dr. Rick Bright, an immunology expert and until last month the director of the Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority, also known as BARDA, claims that he was fired in retaliation for objecting to a treatment hawked by the president. That in itself is, I think, an incredible scandal, as we know that this medicine, hydroxychloroquine, so-called miracle drug for COVID-19, was neither a miracle treatment nor a treatment at all for coronavirus. In fact, the treatment was often ineffective and even dangerous in some circumstances as it created cardiovascular failure in certain patients. Now, punishing Dr. Bright for rightly raising the alarm about this unproven drug was just one of his unacceptable acts of defiance. Dr. Bright said in addition to retaliation for objecting to President Trump's insistence that hydroxychloroquine was effective at treating COVID-19, when we absolutely had no indications at all that that was the case, he also faced sustained pressure from HHS officials since the beginning of the Trump administration to steer millions of dollars in contracts to the client of lobbyist John Clerici. Clerici has a long-standing connection to Dr. Robert Kadlec, Assistant Secretary for Preparedness and Response at HHS, according to the complaint. Dr. Bright complains that multiple times, beginning in 2017 when Trump took office, he was pressured to extend government contracts to Aeolus Pharmaceuticals, happens to be a client of Dr. Clerici's. In addition to being his client, Aeolus' CEO was a friend of Jared Kushner, Trump's son-in-law and senior advisor. Bright refused to extend that contract, leading to discord between him and his superiors at the department. That tension grew steadily as Kadlec and other officials urged Bright to transfer $40 million from BARDA to the Strategic National Stockpile in 2018 to purchase a drug made by manufacturer Alvogen, another of Clerici's clients, among other disagreements. According to the complaint, Dr. Kadlec's frustration with and animus towards Dr. Bright reached its breaking point when, after the emergence of COVID-19, Dr. Bright resisted efforts to fall into line with the administration's directive to promote the broad use of chloroquine and hydroxychloroquine and to award lucrative contracts for these and other drugs, even though they lacked scientific merit, had not received prior scientific vetting. It's important to note that hydroxychloroquine is a drug used for malaria and also for patients with certain immunodisorders. The use of hydroxychloroquine in many of these testing for resistance to, or I should say, to fight COVID-19 coronavirus, ended up with many patients who use the drug, who need the drug, to not have access to that drug. Now, we also found out that Trump had a small financial stake in one of the companies involved in the manufacture of hydroxychloroquine, as did others in his inner circle. Bright also wrote in his 89-page complaint that he encountered pushback in January when he called on HHS to begin developing resources in preparation for treatment and vaccine research as the COVID-19 pandemic reached the United States. It was clear to Dr. Bright almost immediately, according to the complaint, that the virus was highly contagious, spreading rapidly, and could have a high mortality rate. Bright and his staff recognized the urgent need to obtain genetic sequencing information about the virus and to acquire viruses and clinical specimens from people infected with the virus to share with laboratories and companies. Dr. Bright encountered indifference which then developed into hostility from HH leadership, including Secretary Alex Azar, as Dr. Bright and his staff raised concerns about the virus and the urgent need to act. The department leadership also then grew increasingly hostile towards Bright after he communicated with members of Congress, the press, and some White House officials, including trade advisor Peter Navarro, about the need to act urgently to confront the pandemic. Peter Navarro, of course, talked about this, had presented the White House with stacks and stacks of paper in order to show the deadliness of this disease. Now, CNN reported now that Bright is scheduled to testify to Congress as early as next week, and the charges included in his complaint. Now, there are other people that are not allowed to testify in front of Congress. That includes Dr. Fauci, which is part of the now soon-to-be disbanded coronavirus task force. So now, here, in this case, we have a clear case of the administration not only ignoring the potential lethality of the virus, but also punishing and demoting those who happen to raise the alarms about the virus. Add into the allegation that he was pressured to reward companies connected to those in the administration, and you have a great example of the swamp behavior that Donald Trump had claimed that he was going to fight against. Swamp, of course, is alive and well, thriving under Trump's leadership, or lack thereof. Another gross example of ignoring science, factual information, in order to basically only help themselves and their very well-connected friends. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent progressive media.